All right. Today we're going to be talking about attachment and addiction. This is an interesting topic. Most people have no idea how these two things go. And it's amazing. It's amazing when you learn how these two pieces fit together. I can't wait to show everybody this piece. This is a topic that most people don't understand how these two fit. Hey, JD baby, thanks for coming in. I see you there. Thank you. Today we're talking about attachment and addiction, how they go together. Most people have no idea. I blow people's minds when I teach them this. This is a shock right here. I've worked with so many recovery programs. I've worked with people running the recovery programs. They've got my book and everything going in their programs. It's amazing. Because when you know this, when you know what I'm about to teach you, all those types of addictions become way easier to manage. Addiction. How does addiction interact with attachment? So when you have broken attachment, when you have insecure attachment, you spend all your time being worried, being nervous, being anxious. It causes this flood of hormones in your brain. That stress from not being connected to people just floods you with those bad hormones. And what that does is it damages and diminishes your dopamine levels, your serotonin levels. It cuts down all the good chemicals that you should have in your brain. So you're playing at this constant deficit. Hey guys, thanks everybody for coming in. Attachment and addiction. When you have broken attachment, which is called insecure attachment, anxious, avoidant, disorganized, when you have those attachment styles, what ends up happening is your brain is just flooded with stress hormones all the time, and you're not doing the good things that are going to get you bonded to people. So you're not getting a refill on the good hormones that you need, the neurotransmitters, the dopamine, the serotonin, the oxytocin, the vasopressin, all those things that give your brain what it needs, you don't get them. And so you go looking for them. Your brain starts looking for ways to artificially pump those numbers up. It's going to do that through various types of addictions. It's also going to help you escape from some of the pain. It's going to help you overwrite some of the problems that you have going on. I see you guys. Thanks for coming in. If you could like this feed while you're on it, that would help. This addiction cycle. So you start binging all the things that give you what you're not getting in your relationships. And you start binging on those things to give you that boost in your brain that you're not getting elsewhere. It's constant suppression of the good and an absolute lack of refillment. That's what's happening. And then you go into the addiction cycle, and that's any addiction. This can happen with nicotine, for example. Nicotine, there's a lot of things that nicotine does, but one thing it does is give you a boost of dopamine in the brain, at least when you first start using nicotine. Now, that dopamine feels really good. And your brain says, wow, I feel good for no reason. It was just smoking that. That felt great. I'm going to remember that. Because if you're chronically low on dopamine, this is why people who are depressed a lot, they smoke cigarettes, is because it gives them a boost of dopamine and they're chronically low on dopamine all the time. So smoking, outside of every self-help group and every support group, you are going to see a pack of smokers sitting there because it's boosting the dopamine that they're not getting otherwise. And it gets you the first hit, the first couple times you start smoking until your brain gets used to it because your brain tries to regulate how much dopamine is coming in. So your brain says, okay, I'm going to slow down my own production of dopamine and release even less because I'm getting stimulated, overstimulated on all this dopamine. So then you're smoking just to feel normal. So the cigarettes, that's when you try to quit, you become like a prickly hedgehog. It's because your dopamine levels are now suppressed from what they naturally would be. And people think, this is life without cigarettes? I can't do this. It's the old saying, right? I've quit smoking. Quitting smoking is easy. I've done it hundreds of times. It's because you go into that cycle of now you're artificially low. But you probably got there. And the reason you might have started smoking cigarettes in the first place, maybe smoking marijuana in the first place, the reason most people pick up substances or any kind of addiction and then get addicted to them, what creates that addiction cycle? It is having typically insecure attachment. It is not believing that you can trust the people around you, not believing you can connect to the people around you, and believing that you have to live every moment of your life tense like this, ready for the next bad thing to happen because no one's going to watch your back. And if something bad happens, it's just going to knock you right down. So you're stressed out like this all the time, and your good dopamine and your serotonin are low, and you're just a mess, and you're fighting it all the time. This is why it happens. This is what creates the addictive personality because if you're that stressed out all the time, whew, man, you have nothing. You're not getting a refill on the good chemicals, and they're also suppressed. The ones you have are naturally suppressed, so you're double whammy. So what you do, any kind of addiction, anything that feels good, your brain says, "Aha! I never feel good except when I do that." Eating addiction, and video game addiction, gambling addiction. I've treated all of those things. This is one reason. One reason I tell people marijuana is challenging. I don't say, man, marijuana is going to kill you. No, but if you start using it, your brain says, if you start using it for the wrong reasons and too much, your brain says, I don't feel good anywhere else except with that. I'm going to stop doing whatever else might have worked and just focus on that. And I'm not here to scare you off of marijuana. I'm just, if you can fix the attachment purpose and the attachment issues that are there, then you can enjoy whatever you're doing, whether that's recreational substance use or video games, gambling, shopping, food, whatever it is, you can enjoy them without binging them and without compulsively binging them, without needing them, without those problems that hurt, right? Because that's when you start leaning on it to replace what should be there, that's when it becomes an addiction. That's because you can't live without it anymore. That's the problem. So, guys, thanks for coming in. I see, wow, it's like 70 people. Thanks for coming. If you could hit like on this, it tells everybody else to come in and see this. I want to spread the news about this addiction and how to beat it because I've worked with a lot of addiction. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Thanks, guys, for coming in. I like this to be interactive. Leave me comments, ask me questions, anything you want to know about addiction, and especially addiction in relationships, how it affects your relationships, how it affects anything. Let me know. Hit me with the questions down below. I love this kind of stuff. I love the back and forth. So addiction. You start off, right? What is attachment? Attachment is the giving and receiving of mutual care and love between people. It's the trust a child has from their parents that they are going to get their needs met and that they deserve to be loved. If that's broken, if you grow up without that and your parents, hey, guys, thanks for the likes. That's awesome. That helps. And spread the thing if you could. Tell people about it, share it, whatever works. I'd love that. More people in here. Addiction and attachment, how they go together, is you grow up thinking that no one's going to love you. You don't deserve to be loved. No one's going to help you. You have to be careful because other people can't be trusted or you can't be trusted. It's the belief that deep down on the inside, there's something wrong with you that everyone else can see, but you don't know what it is. And so you got to keep a wall up and keep on guard. Then you have to please people and make them happy, earn their approval so they won't abandon you. It's this endless cycle. And it turns into chronically low dopamine, chronically low serotonin. Serotonin comes about from a number of things, food and substances and things like that, but also from good conversation, good warmth, good care, feeling bonded to other people. Serotonin releases a flood of that. Dopamine comes from feeling warm and safe and happy, good food, but also holding hands, cuddling, good physical contact. All of that comes about from that. Psych major here, Trev. Thank you. That's awesome. I love this. Okay, what is the connection then between dopamine and serotonin and attachment? It's this. If you believe there's something wrong with you deep down on the inside, you can never open up to other people. You can't connect to them and you can't trust them because they might hurt you or abandon you, right? Hurt is the avoidant piece. I'm afraid of being hurt, and so I won't let anyone close to me. Abandonment is the anxious piece of I'm going to do whatever it takes to make people like me and approve of me so they don't leave me. Both of them are based on fear of other people and that connection. So what you're going to have to do is be afraid all the time because no one's going to come help you, right? It's you. And you can't ask for your needs to be met. You can't calm down. You got to run damage control all the time. You're not going to be sleeping very well. Everything is going to go wrong. So your dopamine levels and serotonin levels very low. Very low. You never feel comfortable. You never feel safe. You never feel relaxed. You don't feel bonded to other people. That's when those dopamine and serotonin would go up. Along comes something that makes you feel good, right? Gambling people, they got on and they built a lot of these apps. They pulled many of the same principles. That's why they chime and ding. Well, look at this. And it makes you keep wanting to keep going. If you've ever scrolled Facebook for 2 hours and then said, wait, what have I been doing for 2 hours? This is why. It's because it's set up to just constant dopamine feedback. All the fast food that we eat, all the sugar that we eat, sugar is just like pounding the dopamine button. Serotonin, you can get some from foods, but chronically low serotonin is associated with depression pieces. So when you have this and you're low serotonin from bad relationships, stressed all the time, then you get on antidepressant meds and it just delays the reuptake. So it's supposed to kind of flood a little bit more, but you never get any serotonin anyway, or very little. So then you're just kind of floating in a little bit more, maybe. This is why people, when they take antidepressants for the first time, they say, why am I not happy? They told me I could be happy and I'm not happy. I'm just numb. This is why, because it's a relationship piece. So many people turn to whatever feels good. Eating all the time. This is why people can't stop eating. Sometimes the binge eating and binge eating and binge eating, the comfort eating. This is one reason we comfort eat. Even if you don't have an addiction to comfort eating, this is why we have comfort foods, because it floods the serotonin, it floods the dopamine. It feels really good. Someone says, I don't understand some people who claim and say they love you, but their actions say something else. Yep, always trust the actions. Usually what that means is when we have attachment problems, and this ties right into the addiction piece, when we have attachment problems, we are trying to be with other people and receive love and receive warmth, but we can never open up and trust them. Never. So what happens is we don't bond with them. We have this wall between us and them. So we have to play a game where we push buttons and try to make them do what we want. Most people, it's not malicious, it's not sociopathic. It's I care about that person. I want them in my life, but I'm also afraid if they ever find out that I'm worthless, they'll abandon me. So I'm going to push buttons by making them so happy they will never, ever leave me. So the overly nice guys and overly nice girls who have no boundaries kind of thing, that's pushing those buttons. But what you're doing is treating other people like objects. You're not interacting with them like people. You are acting upon them like an object. That's what that is. So when they're saying nice things to you, but doing something else, they're pushing buttons and treating you like an object. And that's at the core of a lot of addiction, because as you dive into addiction more, you can't stop and engage with people like other people, because that'll blow up the whole process you're doing. So it is treating other people like objects. A lot of it is. Does this apply to attachment to food as well? Absolutely. So food, a lot of our processed foods here in the West that we binge anyway is so focused on sugars and things like that. That's just pounding the dopamine. And all the drinks and Mountain Dew, people just chug down the Mountain Dew when they're not feeling good. It's not just the caffeine, it's the sugar, which is a flood of dopamine. It makes you feel neurologically good for an amount of time. And then you have the crash, you have all kinds of things that go along with it, but oh man, it's so bad. Child development trauma, parenting root of cause. Yes, the child's brain when it's growing up, one of the primary things it needs to learn is, do both of my parents love me? And if they don't, it's my fault. That's what happens. That's why a lot of kids blame themselves for their parents' addiction and depression and divorce, everything. They blame themselves. That's the only thing they know how to do. What's the best way to overcome codependency? Great question. So codependency is usually built on a lot of this cycle. When you are codependent, you are usually taking care of someone else who has a ton of problems. You are trying to earn their love and earn their approval by taking care of somebody who will never run out of problems, so you can always earn their approval. And it's based on loving people, but it's also based on believing you can never be loved, and that's normal, and that's okay, and that's all you'll ever get. So it's based on, I am the good one, I am taking care of them. It sounds so bad to say it that way, and it usually really does come from a place of love, but it's the best that the person can approximate for love, because they've never felt love themselves. They've never been loved. Most people who have codependency have never truly been loved or received that love or perceived that they were loved. So thanks, guys, for coming. While you're here, if you could like and hit like, it alerts more people to come in. If you could share this out, that would help. Let's get more people educated about attachment and addiction together. Peer influence leads to more of it than most people realize. I've heard that line so much, and I understand that. And I understand that peer influence can play a role in introducing it, I should say. If someone has secure attachment, they're happy, their dopamine, their serotonin is high, and their family is legitimately great. I don't just mean on the surface great, but warm and bonded and nurturing, and there's been no abuse and nothing, and no traumas and things like that. That person is so much more likely to resist anything because they don't need it. You say, "Hey, smoke this. This will make you feel great," and they say, "Well, that's all right. I already feel great. I don't really want to dive into that." That's normal. That's normal for that to happen. So yeah, peers definitely can play a role in introducing you to the different addictive behaviors and in codifying some of the behaviors like, hey, this is normal, and in, hey, I have a group and we can all smoke together, we can drink together, because then you're also doing some surface level bonding a little bit, so you're getting some of that serotonin and dopamine from the social experience. A lot of that can play a piece too. It's a big mess, but a lot of it begins back with that attachment. That's what opens the door for, I need something to feel better. That right there. Addiction comes about because they need something. They're looking for something, usually is what it is. The ones who don't just smoke and say, that was no big deal, that was okay. The ones who can take a drink and say, yeah, a drink once in a while is okay. What separates them from the people that say, no, I need this, it's years of leaning on it, but built on that attachment of believing there's something wrong with them. They can't engage in deeper relationships. They can't bond with people. They're worthless on the inside. They can't open up and connect to people, so they don't refill their good chemicals in their brain. So they substitute them by pumping themselves full of whatever they can. Any addiction, even video game addiction. I've worked with people who have severe video game addiction who get divorced over it because their brain prefers the video game to their spouse, because their spouse, they can't connect to them. So their brain says, nah, the video game's the priority. The video game just pounds the dopamine. Because you think of like World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is one of the longest running MMOs. You go in there and you start playing, and there's noises blowing up every time you hit a level. There's things happening. There's all these noises and sounds. And what they're doing is creating a positive feedback loop saying, look how amazing you are. Aren't you so much happier here than you are in your real life? That's what's a big part of the feedback. So people go there and they identify with that and say, this is great. I feel so good here. And I feel so terrible in my marriage. The brain says, well, then let's do what works. And it focuses on the video game. The video game becomes more important than anything else to them. This is the same of anything else, of any other kind of addiction. Trauma can be a cause of anxiety. You can have traumatic moments for your onset. Anxiety can cause trauma. Yep. So the threshold for developing post-traumatic stress disorder after trauma, the brain is trying to answer two questions after trauma. What happened? What are all the factors that went into it? And how do I make sure it never happens again? And it starts cycling, trying to figure that out. If you are chronically stressed out, the left hemispheres are different. So your left logical side of your brain is diminished to fuel those emotional storms on the right side brain. And that can never process, the emotional side can never process those factors or figure out how to protect you. So you endlessly cycle. You can never get back because this is diminished. That's what happens, especially with attachment. The threshold for that is lowered because you're even more deficient like this all the time. So if you have something go wrong, your brain says, I don't know what happened, and no one will ever help me. I'm alone. The only thing I can do is be afraid all the time. That's the only way I can stay safe. That absolutely lowers the threshold for that trauma to turn into post-traumatic stress disorder. What happens if you trap yourself in a relationship because of the positive feedback loop and you're married and realize what it was? So, good question. No, really good question, because that happens a lot, and all kinds of people get that. I'll answer that in a moment. Guys, if you could hit that like button, start spamming this out, get more people in here. This is awesome. Thank you. If you could share this out, let's get more people educated about this, and let's talk about this a little bit more. So how do you get in that if you're in that cycle? I've worked with so many people who are married into that codependency cycle, that broken attachment cycle. That happens a lot because people who have broken attachments say, I can never open up and get connected to other people like that. I have to earn approval and happiness from other people, and hopefully they'll never abandon me. But these people still fall in love, and they want to be loved, and they want to give love. So they connect to other people who will never get too close, who often have some of the same issues, or an anxious and avoidant person tie up, or whatever it is. They're both constantly trying to earn approval from each other, whatever it might be. They form this bond, and then one of them wakes up to it and says, wait a minute. And they learn about, they're watching this feed, or they're reading a book or whatever, and they say, wait a minute, something's not right here. This happens a lot, especially when the wife becomes pregnant and has the child, and she gets a flood of oxytocin, and now she's bonded with that child, and then through breastfeeding bonds with the child, and then she watches the child grow up and be anxious and starts saying, wow, something's not right here, and I can't be the only one giving them this good attachment. So she starts pressuring the dad, hey, please do something more. And he's like, just doing the same thing I've ever been. Why are you mad at me? And it breaks apart marriages. I've seen that happen. What do? You do your best to institute good attachment practices in yourself. You start doing those. I've got guides on my YouTube channel. Here in my bio here on TikTok, if you click on that, I've got the YouTube link in there. Free hundreds. I think I passed 110, 120 guides on there. Free guides on my YouTube channel. Adam Lane Smith over on YouTube. If you look up Adam Lane Smith and attachment, you will find it. Everything over there is totally free. So that's what you do, is you start instituting that in yourself and see if that will change the process. You start talking about it with the other person. I've got a video on YouTube, Adam Lane Smith, what is attachment? You can sit and watch it with your partner and say, I think this might be us. Don't say you, because that's not going to go over well. I think this is us. What can we do about it? What can we talk about this? I've got a book. I've written books on this. I've got coaching. I've got groups. I've got everything on this. So fixing it, if a person wants to fix it, you can 100% fix this. But both sides have to be willing to fix it and believe it's possible to fix it. So Adam Lane Smith, what is attachment, over on YouTube? That'll start. Travis, addiction. Yes. So addiction feeds into all of this because you are chronically low on all these things anyway. And then your brain says, aha, this thing feels good and it costs me nothing. Right? What does beer cost? Very little. What does marijuana cost? A little bit more. What does gambling cost? Well, a lot more. But also the payoff can be pretty huge. What does video game addiction cost? Well, the price of a video game, unless you buy in, and then it's a monthly subscription. What does shopping addiction cost? A lot more. What does food addiction cost? Not as much. Not as much, except long-term health. Long-term health. Seven of the top 10 causes of death are related directly to metabolic problems from binging sugar and binging the food. It's not even the fat content, it's usually the sugar content. 7 out of 10. So death is the cost of food eventually. That's usually right there. A little bit more cost your health. Exactly. What really got me over video game addiction was getting a college wrestling offer. That's awesome, because what that can do is that can flood you with all of the good chemicals. So actual accomplishments, actual bonding, and actual accomplishments can kick this out. Because what you need to do to overcome that attachment problem and overcome the addiction problem is not just go to a group and say, all right, I messed up and I relapsed and I don't want to use this anymore. You got to solve the problem that's under it. I've worked with so many people from every kind of recovery program. I've worked with every kind of addiction. I've had people come in addicted to heroin and say, Adam, I just used like last night and I'm a little messed up right now. Okay, let's talk about this. Working with heroin addiction, it's all kinds of addictions. I've worked with everything. Addictions you wouldn't even believe. All of it feeds back into this process. All of it feeds back into this process. While I'm at it, if you guys could just double tap it, like it, more people start flooding in. That helps the channel. Thank you. All of this, if you want to make yourself resilient against becoming addicted to things, against overindulging in things that you don't want to be indulging in, or if you're in addiction and you want to make yourself resilient against relapses, fix your attachment. Because what that will do is a couple of things. Number one, it will diminish the constant flood of cortisol and stress hormones that you're buried in all the time in your relationships of what am I going to do? I can't trust anybody. I'm nervous. No one's going to help me. I have to constantly make people happy. I have to constantly get approval. It'll end that cycle. And it will bond you to people. So not only will you not be draining the good chemicals, the good hormones, you will be growing and boosting the serotonin, the dopamine, the oxytocin, the vasopressin. I've got guides on all these big words, by the way, over on my YouTube, Adam Lane Smith, YouTube, Adam Lane Smith attachment. I've got more than 100 guides for free over there for how to boost all these things. But to do this, you have to be aware of it. So many recovery programs, they don't address this. Now, the AA program, Alcoholics Anonymous, I like what they do. I think that they might unintentionally be addressing this, or maybe even intentionally, because what they have you do is they have you stop, they have you recognize the cost, but then they have you go and make amends to people and own up to it. That's a big piece with attachment, because you're having a serious conversation, you're opening up who you are, you're showing people who you are, and you're addressing it. What that's going to do is it's going to end the stress flood, and it's at least going to give you a little bit of a chance to boost like this. Then they have you build healthier relationships, and they keep you accountable for it. As you end the stress flood by realizing you're not worthless, and then as you grow your healthy relationships and refill those hormones all the time, you are almost on drugs all the time from that perspective, because you feel good all the time. You wake up feeling good. Yeah, this is possible. You can wake up feeling like you're in the middle of a high and have that all the time forever, almost forever, moments of stress, but you can have that. You can build that. You can build that by fixing your attachment. It's so much of it is the attachment. So much of it is the attachment. Let's say if I had a gambling addiction with blindness, I lost a lot in a row, I stopped. Yes, I had people who pawned their wedding ring secretly so that they could continue their gambling addiction. Then they lost that. They had to go home and tell their partner, "Hey, I lost the wedding ring. Oops." Not to mention damage from high cortisol. Yes, that can happen. Wrestling, yep. Get a focus intensive hobby. That can help, especially as you realize that you can make accomplishments and have and do things, and that you can accomplish things. Then you have something cool about yourself to show off. That can start repairing some of the attachment too, because it leads to the confidence to repair the attachment. Working out as an addiction. People who work out have a high rare case. I have heard some of that. Often what that can be, there's a couple pieces that go into that. I mean, one, there's the vanity piece everyone always talks about, but it also gives you this flood, this change, the diminished size of the brain. So when you're logically diminished to fuel emotional spikes, a prolonged, intense physical discomfort, when you hit the endurance phase during running, during workouts, during Tai Chi, during yoga, during lifting, whatever it is, it levels you out and diminishes the emotional brain, then gives you this, what feels like a high from the endorphins, but it also restores full logical functioning and feels totally calm. Some people then take that and feel great, and that's the only time they ever feel good. And then it also gives them some dopamine boost. There's all kinds of things that go into workout addiction. There's also body image. Um, it can also be sometimes a form of anorexia, not anorexia, bulimia. A workout, instead of binging through throwing up, you can binge through working out. And that itself, the eating part and the binging part, often comes from this dopamine craving. That's often where that comes from too, and the need for control. And it comes from I'm worthless, but at least I can do this. There's all kinds of pieces, but heart of it is attachment. Heart of it is attachment. Our psychological and physiological dependency pretty much the same. No, but they feed into each other hardcore. They feed into each other hardcore because the physiological dependency strongly impacts the psychological, and the psychological impacts the physiological. If you are chronically low on those transmitters anyway and the hormones, and then you use these substances and things like this, and it builds up a new dependency, they go hand in hand. You can't really separate one from the other. It goes hand in hand. Usually the psychological piece seems to go first, is what I've noticed, and it eases you into it, and then you get it more and more and more. That seems to be the addiction cycle, and you go into it more and more. How do you stay disciplined? I'm 160 days clean. Awesome. Good for you. Good for being clean. I love reading messages just like that. Oh, that's great. No, I'm like on the inside, I'm like pumped for you. How do you stay disciplined? You stop the attachment drain. You stop the attachment drain of the chronically low dopamine and the low serotonin that's just low because you're not bonded to other people. You think you're worthless. You think that if anyone gets to know who you are, you're going to be exposed as a fraud. It's that imposter syndrome 24/7 in every relationship. It's going into social circumstances and saying, this is it. This is the time I'm going to be exposed as a fraud. I hate it and it's awful and I'm so exhausted from just pushing buttons and trying to make people like me. It's ending that and fixing the attachment so that you say, wow, I am connected to people. I'm okay. I'm not worthless. I thought I was, but I'm not. I'm bonded with people. And then you start having good conversations that ups the serotonin. You have great interactions with people, legitimate ones, and that ups the dopamine. And then they're high and your brain levels them out. And then you're great. You don't have that discipline problem anymore because you don't have chronic lows where you go into those binges. Those binges refill your willpower a little bit is what it's kind of doing. You're getting the dopamine binge. Then you have enough dopamine, you can push off other things that are bothering you. Do you think college life feeds into alcohol addiction more, or is it a phase? Um, I have seen it be a phase. The social components there and the pressures there, that's one place where the pressure is really hard. A lot of people who go away to college anyway, though, about half of Americans have attachment problems, is what the research shows. About half of Americans have attachment problems. And going away to college, being separated from family, all that kind of stuff, if you're in the dorms, that can also cause stress, whether you're attached or not. That can cause stress. Being in those new environments can cause stress. The alcohol is according to our brain, is a great way to just mash that button and turn it all off. And also what that does is it resets the brain circuits so that you're not just buzzing and stressed out all the time. It calms them down. Then you hit a huge one, and you like blackout drunk, and you wake up the next day. Your brain has reset. It has reset. It's not holding all the old memories that it's been trying to hold on to all this time. It has calmed down. It can feed an alcohol addiction. Depends on your social groups, desires for social. Yes, yep. Travis has got it. It's the chicken and the egg. It's the chicken and the egg. All right. If you guys could double tap on this, just like this, throw up some likes, share it out a little bit. Let's get more people in here. So how do you if you have an addiction, or if somebody has an addiction that you know, how do you go from addiction to flow back into good attachment and end the addiction? Not just create a point where you're constantly in nonstop recovery, where you're just on the edge all the time and you're at the mercy of the cravings. How do you create a system where you are past the relapses, past all of that piece? Maybe not forever, you need to be aware, but past it where you're not on the edge all the time afraid. How do you get past that? Get rid of people, places, and things. Sort of. What you need to do is you need to fix your attachment. So if the belief is that deep down, nobody will ever love you, you're worthless, you can't trust other people, you can't open up and connect with other people, you can't bond with people. If you can't do that, and that's what's causing it, you need to fix that. And some people say, how would I ever fix that? That's how the world really works. No, that is from insecure attachment. There's secure attachment, and then there's 3 types of insecure attachment, 3 different ways a person can break down. That right there is a big piece of it. You have to fix that relationship piece. You have to not just love yourself, but experience real love from somebody else. And that sounds terrifying for a lot of people. Addicted for 13 years, I have 8 years clean, sober. Awesome. Good. I love those messages. I love reading when people are clean and sober. That's just fantastic. Good for you. That's a hard thing to do. If you can fix the attachment, if you haven't already, a lot of people have. At that point, when you're cleaning this over that long, it usually means you've fixed some of the attachment. Even if you don't know the words for it, that's usually what's happened. I'm young and I drink alone, drink too much, like every day. How can I start stopping? Number one, spend less time alone. And not just spend less time alone. Alone time is okay, but have real conversations. Here's how you do it. Here's how you fix attachment. Let me just throw this out there. How do you fix attachment to stop this cycle? So, as I'm going into this, if you guys would pound the likes on this, that would really help, floods the channel and pulls people in. How do you fix attachment? So it starts with the belief with your parents that something is wrong with you deep down on the inside, that nobody else can ever love you. Your parents are depressed, they're tired, they were abusive, they were neglectful, they didn't spend time with you, you were in daycare and your brain thought that they didn't want to spend time with you. It could be any number of things that have happened to you, but it's the realization in the little child's brain that somebody doesn't like you, someone doesn't love you, your two parents, there's something there. Even if they're divorced, this happens also. If one is gone and the other is great, so it doesn't matter. The brain says both parents were there. Why don't both parents love me? And the child's brain says it must be my fault. It's something wrong with me that everyone else can see. No one will ever love me more than this. I deserve this. That's what the brain says. And then you carry that forward into the relationships. The brain says, I have to earn love and approval from other people and keep them at an arm's length. Yes, my parent died. That can happen too. That fear, that trauma, that can happen too. No one's going to help. I'm currently on taper. I'm in group therapy, reading Managing Chronic Pain. Awesome. Glad to hear that. That's awesome. That's some good stuff. CBT is a good approach. I don't know if I'm developing a problem with prescription pain for chronic pain. If it is getting out of hand, you can't go without it at all. The pain is getting worse if you don't take it, and it feels like that's the only thing you could do. And if you're using it for other pain too, if you're using it in anticipation of pain, all of these are really good signs. Bad signs, but good signs of that there might be a problem there. Problem with prescription pain meds is you pound them and then you just feel so much better. And a lot of times you come off of them and you feel so terrible because your brain has not been producing the same levels of all the hormones and neurotransmitters it should be producing, because it's trying to keep you balanced and level, and it has reached a lower level and it takes a few days to snap back. That's why when you're off it for a few days, you feel horrendous. Same thing with like heroin, things like that. Methadone, which is what you use to get off heroin, which then gets you back on heroin because you try to get off methadone. It's a big circle. How do you fix attachment then? You go out and you challenge this terror that you are worthless on the inside, that no one will ever love you, that fear that you learned that your parents won't love you, that something's wrong there, something's wrong with you. You challenge it. You pick one person you trust and you go to them and you say, you have what I call the I am an anxious person conversation. It's real quick. It goes like this. You may not know this about me, but I'm an anxious person. I worry all the time about what people think of me. I think that people are mad at me, sometimes when they're not. I run damage control. I can't sleep at night because I'm thinking all the time and I'm always stressed out. And sometimes I don't tell the truth, or I say things that aren't true because I just think people want to hear that from me. But I hate it and I don't want to do it anymore. And I want to build a better relationship with you that's always honest. So can we please do that? Is that okay if I'm just always honest with you? That right there will be one of the hardest conversations you will ever have in your entire life. Ever. Ever. Because when you're a little kid, it welds being abandoned, being disapproved of, not being liked, people mad at you. It welds those to death. So it activates the limbic system, the fight or flight, every time you're thinking about opening up and connecting to people. So this is the most terrifying conversation you will ever have. And the other person will probably say, well, yeah, I already knew this about you. Are you really thinking I didn't? And you're going to, what? And you're going to be floored. But a couple seconds into the conversation, what's going to happen is you're going to go from absolute terror of don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. Your brain will be screaming at you to, well, I'm already in it. I got to finish it. But the other person's going to be looking at you like, oh, wow. Well, no, I hear you. And they'll be sympathetic. They'll be interested. They won't have spit on you or jumped out the window to escape. And the brain will say, what is happening? This person's accepting me. I always thought if I opened up, people would abandon me or hate me. What's happening here? The brain freaks out and it doesn't understand. It just messes up. It freaks out the brain. The brain says, let's never do this again. This was fun. And you will. You'll get serotonin and dopamine. You get some oxytocin. You get some vasopressin. You get everything. You start bonding with that person more and more. And they'll bond a little bit with you. And you say, yeah, I'd totally love to build a relationship with you based on honesty and trust. Let's do that. And your brain will say, they say that, but they don't mean it. And as you test it with them over the next few weeks, one by one, piece by piece, your brain will rewire. It'll be afraid every time, but it'll rewire. Then you do this with a second person. Hey, I'm an anxious person. Can we still be friends? Can we be better friends? Can we just be honest with each other all the time? You just Then the brain will say, well, that person accepted me too. That was weird. Maybe it's 50-50. You do it with a third person, the brain says, I'm done. I was wrong. This is okay. I can connect to people. It turns out that they don't spit on me if I open up. They don't abandon me. There's not something wrong with me deep down. These people think I'm actually okay. That's 3 for 3. I've seen this rewire a human brain in a couple of weeks if you go through this quick. It's mind over matter, sort of. It's not too serious a problem compared to others, but anyways, to settle severe nail biting. That often comes from agitation. You're looking for something to calm you down, the stimulation of biting the nails. And keep a nail trimmer more at hand. Keep like 3 of them in your house, but it's often agitation. It's often agitation. It's a way of fidgeting. It's another way of fidgeting. So this fixes the attachment. Once you open up and bond with 3 people and you are having serious conversations with them and you have purposely cracked open and you're opened up with those people. And a lot of addiction and recovery programs force you to do this anyway. They force you to go to people and say, I have an addiction. I've been battling it with it for a while now. Here are my tells. If I'm getting back into it, if I'm going to have a relapse, here's how you would know, so I can't lie to you anymore. Here's what I want from you. I want to repair our relationship. I'm sorry for anything I've ever done. Can we fix it up? And from now on, I want to be totally honest. That is the addiction and recovery program model of I am an anxious person. That's what that is. It forces you to open up and bond with those other people. And they're like, wow, that really sucks. But okay, let's get through this. And then you can rebuild some of those relationships. That is huge. That is how you fix attachment. And it's also how you transform this and get out of those relapse modes. Because then once you've built that with people, the brain says, I hate whatever I was addicted to before because it hurts my new relationships that are constantly flooding me with serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, vasopressin. I don't ever want to risk this again. Then your brain is on your side. Your brain is the problem with relapses and addiction. Your brain's the problem. You got to rewire it to love the bonding instead of loving what is replacing the bonding. I'm literally taking notes. This is valuable information. Thank you, King of Beaches. Over on you, if this was good, I've got over like 110, 120 of these deep dives on every topic and relationships, addiction, everything over on YouTube. Adam Lane Smith, attachment on YouTube. You'll find me over there. Go over there. I've got a ton of these. And I do these lives like 3 times a week, mostly Mondays and Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Central. Trying out some of these Thursdays at lunchtime to help people. So I like that. I like this talk. I like these conversations. Not me talking but these conversations. This is great. If you guys, while you're at it, could hit the likes, that'll pump more people in, and it'll pump up the whole thing. So we'll get even more questions. I want more questions so we can go through them. Will you post this to YouTube? So much value from my YouTube. I've got like 100, 110, 120. I need to do a deep dive on specific addiction over there. I do have a deep dive on marijuana over there and why it can be a risk for people with attachment issues specifically. It's not me hating on marijuana. I got plenty of friends who love it. It's not that. It is, here are the risk factors. If you have attachment problems, here's what you need to be aware of. And here's why it could be a problem if a couple problems that cross the line. Do you remember from Grindr? This is, good try. Is pain an addiction? Like acting recklessly in hopes of getting injured? A lot of people, I will say this, the different hemispheres of the brain, they level out. The logical side of the brain is over here. The emotional side is over here. If you are agitated, it diminishes your logical function to fuel these emotional storms. Pain is prolonged, intense physical discomfort that the brain says, whoa, something's happening with my body. I don't have time for feelings right now. I need to fix whatever's happening to stay safe. So it drains the emotional brain to refuel total functioning on the logical brain. This is why a lot of people cut or burn or self-mutilate, self-harm in any way. That's what is fulfilling it, and they feel that huge release. It's this, plus some other transmitters that hit, but it's this. That's what it is. That's also why runner's high feels so great. You get the endorphins, but when you hit the endurance phase, you also have this diminishing. Progressive muscle relaxation can help. I tense and my arms and like in the fist, like you're powering up kind of thing. Then you do that, and then you relax, and you take a couple deep breaths, and you go back into it, and you relax, and you do breaths, and and overall that it exhausts the body, exhausts those muscles, and the brain says something's going on. I need to protect my body. Let's drain the emotions and do full logic. That right there is the key. So that can happen too. Looking for that kind of stuff. How do you overcome cravings? Great one. You cannot very well overcome them once you hit a point where you are having them because you have reached a chronically low diminished point to have cravings. The problem is you have to build in better relationships, better patterns, and everything earlier in your day, and start out that way and build a lifestyle that keeps you consistently high on serotonin and good dopamine so that you are not chasing those dopamine binges later on. That's really what it is. If you are not low, you will not be chasing those binges because you won't need them. Your brain is, when you have those cravings, your brain punching the button and say, we're low, it's terrible, I'm miserable. And it starts pumping the button trying to get you to go do it. That's what's happening. That's what a lot of those cravings are. Diaphragmatic breathing. Yes, the really deep breathing that you're thinking about, you have to focus on your body. And that's an intense situation. And then once you hit endurance phase, even of doing that, you're kind of getting tired of it. Your brain says, okay, something's really going on with my body. Let's drain the emotions, go back to full logic. That's a huge piece. Huge piece. Absolutely. While you guys are here, pound the likes for me. Double tap the screen. Do the likes. That'll help. More people coming in. We'll get even more questions. I love these questions like this. I run out of pain medicine early each month. When I'm out, I just don't seek more. That's good. That's awesome. If you're able to just not seek more and it doesn't tank you, that's a whole different thing. My heart goes out to people who have legit chronic pain because they get lumped in with other people who just use the pain meds and get addicted to them and then can't come off of them. But people with chronic pain, it's very real. Oh, it's very real. But there's also a lot of things that feed into that. So it's good that you can come off of them and you're not desperate for them. If you're not supplementing with other things, I mean, great, fantastic. Is this applicable for someone who cheats? Um, if, good question. What I typically find with affairs is the attachment problems are there and they're not really bonded to their partner. So they're chronically low in dopamine and serotonin anyway, and low on oxytocin and vasopressin. All these are big words. I've got deep dives on all of these over on my YouTube channel, Adam Lane Smith Attachment, deep dives on all this. But what happens with affairs and with cheating is usually not bonding, and then building up resentment and trying to be super nice and earn approval, and it doesn't work. And then you end up with this constant process of mad and then not mad and then earning approval and then resentful. And over time, what happens is the person starts chasing those binges somewhere else. Porn addiction is huge about this, by the way. Porn addiction is tremendous about attachment. Oh man, so big about attachment. That's really big. I feel you're speaking directly about my husband. How do I help him? Good question, Brandy. I see that. Attachment. So right now, go over to YouTube or click in my bio, Adam Lane Smith, what is attachment? That right there, that attachment, I believe, is at the heart of just about every addiction. Watch that video yourself, Adam Lane Smith, what is attachment, on YouTube, and then watch it with him and say, hey, is this us? Is this us? Because, not to call you out, but sometimes people who marry some people who have attachment or addiction problems like that, or develop them, sometimes both have attachment problems, or sometimes just one has the attachment problems and the other one's blindsided by it and has no idea. So watch it together. Watch it first yourself so you're not stunned if there's anything there, and then watch it together and say, hey, this might be us. And then over on my YouTube channel, I've got hundreds of videos. I've got an overwhelming number of hours of just free content. It's a whole university program over there on my YouTube, Adam Lane Smith over on YouTube. Check that out. Tons of free resources over there. That would be great. That can at least start the conversations, because addiction is layered right over top of the attachment problems. What if the addiction is giving you so much dopamine, anything outside of it can't compete? You are not meant to live like that. And there are costs, and there are other things that give you better dopamine, but also give you a flood of multiple chemicals instead of just pounding that one button. Yes, there are things that definitely do that, but it costs so much that there are healthier ways to do it. Your brain will learn the difference if you engage with the difference. And I hear you, that can happen, but you got to put those pieces in. Oh my God, I needed this right now. Galley girl, I hear you. I hear you. Those addiction pieces, the attachment piece, the belief that there's something wrong with you deep down inside, that you can never open up and bond with other people because they'll hate you or abandon you. And then you're afraid to bond with people. And then you're chronically low on everything. You feel run down and stressed all the time. And then you start engaging with those attachment pieces and the addiction pieces, and you just feel better with anything to feel better. That's how those addictions start. And you beat them. Galley girl, thanks for the rose. I saw that. You beat them by fixing the attachment and opening up and connecting with people and showing people who you are and receiving that love and fixing your brain, telling your brain it's okay. People can love me. I am okay. I'm not as worthless as I thought I was. And that stops the dopamine binges and the desperation and the need and the craving for whatever it is that feels good. You can find it in your relationships instead. I've got deep dives on this over YouTube, adamlanesmith.com. AdamLaneSmith.com is my website. Adam Lane Smith over on YouTube. What is attachment? Adam Lane Smith, what is attachment? Check that out. There's a link in my bio if you want to click there. What is attachment? That sounds like an attachment journey. Most of us have that. I have avoidant attachment, but no distress. Someone says, Rosanna says, can I maybe stop? Yes. Avoidant attachment, avoidant attachment is a little bit different because it sometimes doesn't feel like distress, but it's chronically low dopamine, chronically low serotonin, very low happiness, typically. Typically, very low happiness. Very low happiness is what floods in there. So it's not overall distress as much, but that can happen. So yeah, absolutely. You can also repair that. You can definitely repair it, avoidant attachment. I've worked with that tons. Healing has to take place. Educate to eradicate. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right, Rosie. Thank you for taking the time to talk through this with my own issues. Absolutely. Yeah, I love this stuff. I love this stuff. Thanks for asking these questions. Trying to scroll through. I'm figuring this out. After healing has taken place, yes. Healing is, how do I want to say this? The best times I have seen people resist relapses and their brain, not just they hate the drug, but their brain hates the drug or whatever it was, whatever shopping, gambling, video games, sex, porn addiction, sugar addiction, binging, eating disorders, workout addiction, all those addictions. It comes from fixing your relationships and getting all of those hormones and neurotransmitters in your relationships that you should be getting, but you haven't been since childhood because your parents didn't raise you to understand how to get them. I was diagnosed with attachment disorder at 3. This is all finally making sense. Oh, sorry, I hit a button on something. I was diagnosed with attachment disorder. This is making sense. Yes, missing piece. Butterfly, you got it. Over on YouTube, Adam Lane Smith, I have 100 plus videos of everything. How attachment impacts your relationships, how it impacts your kids, how it impacts your ability to raise them, how to stop phone addiction. So phone addiction is huge. Great question. Dirty Danny, great question. That one, the phone people got together and studied with people who built casino machines, slot machines, to the chimes, the noises, the sounds, and the view and everything you see, the colors, the flashing, the feedback. It's designed to make you feel really good. So is social media. So are all the apps. So when you grab your phone, it is an endless dopamine spiral the moment you touch your phone. One thing I can tell you, and it's not going to be fun, you turn your phone to black and white scale, grayscale. You take out all the colors. That will make you, and you won't want to look at it anymore. It'll hurt for a little while. It sucks. Grayscale is huge because it shuts down so much of this. And turn off all the sounds. Put your phone on permanent silent. Turn off all the sounds and put it on grayscale. You will not want your phone hardly at all anymore. That's a great way to start. And then practice putting it in another room even for a couple of hours. And practice that every single day for a period of time. Start breaking that. We call this a detox. Detox from the phone. But grayscale, honestly, huge. Thank you. I know I need help. Yeah, no, grayscale on the phone. All of us need help with that because it's designed. The phone's a trap. It's designed that way. What about when you're past acute withdrawals but can't escape the feeling that you can be in control? So if you need to be in control, oh yeah, in control. That's your brain saying, it's okay. It's your brain. Your brain is fighting you saying, please use it. This is the only thing I know that makes me feel good. The key is finding other things, especially in your relationships, that feel so much better that you don't need it anymore. And your brain says, no, I don't want that anymore. That has so many problems. I want this relationship and these 3, 4, 5 relationships. I want to do this. And then this hobby that I'm doing. You need to get your brain to do that. And to do that, fix the attachment. That's my whole job. I was diagnosed with ASD at 17, fogged my brain. I was told to struggle with things I didn't struggle with growing up. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Those diagnoses, I'm totally with you. Totally with you. This is a new addiction because people are looking for validation. Yep, this is great advice. Good, Dirty Danny. Thank you. I try to hand out practical advice where I can to help people. What are important good dopamine activities? Good question. Good conversations with people gives you dopamine as you say smart things, as you say cool things, as you engage with them, as they engage with you. It also floods you with serotonin. Good conversation with someone that you feel comfortable with floods you with dopamine and serotonin. Then spending more time with them, and then seeing their picture, even noticing them. Love floods you with dopamine and all kinds of good stuff. That's good. Accomplishments flood you with dopamine. So things that you accomplish, checking off tasks. I have a task list every morning of everything I need to accomplish, and every time I hit the checklist button on that one and it gets a little check, dopamine. That's a little bit of dopamine right there. and phone apps know that. That's why the colors are like, hey, you have a notification, you need to check it, and then you check it, and now you've diminished that. Oh, dopamine, all kinds of good stuff, all kinds of good stuff. All right, good reading is New Earth. Okay, all right. If you guys could like this channel, by the way, pump more people up. People are coming and going. It's the lunch hour. It's TikTok. I get it. If you guys could pump that up, hit the likes, just double tap the screen. That'll help. Share this off and share that. Hit share and get people connected. Let's talk about more of this. More questions. Anything, any question about addiction, about attachment, relationships, cheating with addiction, cheating with porn use. A lot of women ask me like, hey, is porn cheating? Hey, should I be worried about porn? Guys say, hey, I know a guy who has a porn addiction. Like, what can he do? I have a whole course on how to fix that, but I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to talk about the porn thing because it's weird correlation. Porn and sugar. Porn and sugar. You start off the day with like a Mountain Dew, and you start off the day with low dopamine and serotonin anyway because your relationships aren't great and you're unhappy. You start off the day with a sugary drink, and then halfway through the day, your blood sugar starts crashing and your dopamine crashes, and your brain says, I don't feel very good. Well, I'm not really hungry. Hey, you know what would be fun right now? And I'm all by myself. That's when porn starts looping right back in. To fix porn addiction, you also have to fix sugar addiction. That is what I've noticed. Those two seem to go hand in hand. And fix the attachment piece that's at the heart of it. It's a weird circle. No one wants to hear about it, but it really is. More questions, anybody? Otherwise, I'm just going to start talking about how to fix attachment. Because fixing attachment, you have that initial conversation with somebody, and you say, I'm an anxious person. I keep things inside. I'm afraid people are going to abandon me, and sometimes I'm not honest, but I hate it, and I want to connect to you from now on. You're ripping open your heart and showing them who you really are on the inside, and you're relearning from childhood if somebody can love you or not. That's what you're really doing. You're ripping it open and saying, can somebody really love me or not? You're testing it. And the brain is a learning organ. It says, we are going to die. Don't do this to us. We will die. That's what happens. So you got to do that with three people, and three people seems to be the magic number to really hit that point where your brain, it takes over, becomes a self-fulfilling circle, and your brain says, I love this, I want more of this. But even at one person, you start saying, wow, this feels great. You'll notice the difference. It's even one person. How do I maintain relationships with family who refuse to break codependent? Oof. So bad news, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can. I have a deep dive over on my YouTube channel about how to exactly do that because it's such a tense topic and there's so much that goes into it. You have to test with good attachment behaviors and build good boundaries and put it on them if they want to engage with your good boundaries or not. If they choose to engage with your good boundaries, fantastic. If they can live inside of that, great. If they absolutely cannot, that answers that question, and they are choosing to select themselves out of your life because they refuse to abide by your boundaries. And then it's on you. Do you choose to have boundaries and those principles, or are you going to surrender those things for their sake? And if so, can you do that without hating yourself? And can you do that without, can you live that kind of life? That is the question then for you. That's not true. I have a sugar addiction. I've been celibate for 5 years. I am healing. That's awesome. Yeah, it's not absolutely guaranteed that if you have a sugar addiction, you will also have a porn addiction. But a lot of guys have that circle. A lot of guys have that circle. If your dopamine levels are high, you don't get cravings. Will that also make you lazy? Really good question. Really good question. No. No, because what happens is your brain is always draining that dopamine anyway, and you're seeking a constant renewal of it all the time. What happens is when you build healthy dopamine, your brain then levels it off. This is why um, you develop that desensitization to chemicals and drugs. Your brain starts matching its normal levels that it produces down to whatever it's getting from its environment. So your brain will automatically start matching that level. Your brain will start adjusting, and then you will feel chronically good all the time once you build that up, but not go overflood. Interestingly, too much dopamine, that overflooding of it, sometimes can lead to. That's one symptom characteristic of schizophrenia, the word schizophrenia. So a lot of schizophrenia medications tank your dopamine, and this is why you see a lot of people on schizophrenia medication smoking cigarettes, because then the nicotine raises their dopamine a little bit, but they're bottoming out. And this is why you can develop tardive dyskinesia, where they shake and they have a twitch for some reason. That's chronically low dopamine all the time. And an extreme version of that is Parkinson's. Parkinson's is the extreme low dopamine also. So it's kind of a weird walk. You got to get it kind of right in the middle. New boundaries are new. I'm finding they don't want to respect mine. My brother used to be my best friend. It hurts him. Yeah, I hear you. No, I hear you. One thing you could do, one thing you could try when you're starting off like this, it's really hard because people do, sometimes the people that are around you, they're around you and they have the same problems. And family is so hard. Go on my YouTube, Adam Lane Smith. What is attachment? Watch that video. It's like 10, 15 minutes. Watch it and say, holy crap, this might be me. Show it to your brother and say, is this us? Is this our family? Not, is this you, man? Because he'll be, no. You could say, you watch it. You can even say, is this me? Can you please watch this and tell me if this sounds like me? And then he's like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll help you out. And a lot of people, when they do that, when the wall is down, they have a moment of insight for themselves and say, I think this is both of us. And that can start the conversation. What often happens when you start fixing attachment is your family has no shared language to even discuss what's going on or why it's bad. It's just an accepted thing that's always been there. You need to build a shared language. And doing that, some of my videos can help. Other videos, anything about attachment can start to help. Um, Ask him, does he want to learn about boundaries? That's a good question down the line. Learning about attachment and just showing him that there's even a better way first can really help. My BF freaks out if I wear anything beyond jeans and a long sleeve full colored shirt. Like, freaks out like he's mad that you're showing skin to other people, or freaks out like won't leave you alone because he's really attracted. Like, what are we talking here? What are we talking here? It's a lonely place when you come from dysfunctional families, start healing, but families not interested. Absolutely. Rosie, absolutely. You nailed it. That is one of the worst things. That is one of the worst things for people is wanting to get better and everyone around them is dragging them down. And that creates this vicious circle. You have to connect with people who have good attachment or build it with people who want to get better. Once you experience that, it becomes much less life or death. It feels life or death because you're going to lose everyone you've ever known and you don't have good attachment with anybody else yet. That's really bad. Butterfly, yeah, 1,000% yes. It's more than 1,000, but it's all my brain can catalog. Go on my YouTube channel, Adam Lane Smith. What is attachment? Watch that video. Watch that. It walks you through what attachment is, and it blows people's minds when they watch that video because it finally fills in some pieces that they haven't had. Yes, showing skin. That is, it depends on a couple factors. If what his principles are, what his goals are, if he's being jealous, if he is jealous, there's a couple pieces that can go to that. Sometimes when we have attachment problems, we're not only addicted to the dopamine, but when we get into a new relationship and we start bonding with people, we get oxytocin, which is comfort bonding for the first time in our life that we didn't get in childhood. And then our brain gets oxytocin with the other person and then becomes really jealous and possessive of that other person. That can happen if we have bad attachment and we only bond with one person. Then we start becoming a little bit controlling, a little possessive, and a little freak out. We become addicted to that one person. This is often how that happens if we don't have good oxytocin bonding in childhood, which leads to often comes from a lot of attachment problems. Best stay away from dysfunctional family, limit as much as possible. That's a hard thing to say. People ask me that all the time, and they expect me as a former mental health worker and as a current attachment specialist to say, just ditch your family. And that is the American answer of like wad them up and throw them in the trash. And sometimes, Rachel, you're not wrong. Sometimes you have to get away from people who are legitimately harmful and manipulative. You do need to get away from them. Sometimes the people don't know much better, and you can educate and teach and get a shared language and work on it together. You got to really parse that out, but it comes down to your boundaries. It comes down to saying, hey, here's my boundaries. I want to have a relationship with you guys, but here is what I need. And if you go over this line, you are choosing not to have a relationship with me because there's going to be consequences. So choose what you guys want to do. Here's where it's at. I would love to be with you guys. Here's what I need. And if they can do that, people who love you will be like, well, let's talk about this. Okay. People don't say, you are horrible. How dare you? I am your parent. Or how dare you? You are the. It tells you everything you need to know. And they will select themselves out. And then you just say, okay, when you're ready to work on this and when you're ready to talk about this, please come tell me. I want to talk about it. And the next time we talk, we will be talking about it. I'm not going to sweep this under the rug. You just hold them to it. They will choose to leave the relationship or they'll choose to get better. That's the choice. Don't make the choice for them. Give them the choice and put it in their court because then that's them. Hi, Adam. Where is Eve? Yep. I have heard that for many, many decades now. I've heard that many, many decades. All right. Any more questions? We're just about out of time. Thank you guys so much for coming to this. I'll be back again Monday night at 7 o'clock Central. Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Central. More attachment pieces. Check my bio. I have so many links in my bio. So many products. I've got a book, a $5 book on how to fix this called Slaying Your Fear. I have got a whole YouTube channel of like 110, 120 free guides over on YouTube. Adam Lane Smith. YouTube, Adam Lane Smith attachment. The best video is Adam Lane Smith, what is attachment? I've got guides over there on how to boost your child's attachment, how to bond with a stepchild, how to build bulletproof relationships that will not experience an affair or divorce. I've got all kinds of free guides over there. That's kind of the rabbit hole most people dive down. And then from there, I've got all kinds of other stuff to offer you guys too. So thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for learning about attachment. This was fun. Let's do this again. I love these comments so much. You guys are great. Thank you guys.